While on a late-night flight, well-known writer and missionary Elisabeth Elliot felt the sudden tide of loneliness, as she put it, sweep over her. It came with a click and a tiny light in the dark and silent airplane. She thought the couple beside her was asleep like everyone else. But suddenly the woman took out a cigarette and the man clicked his lighter to light it. She recalled, "In the light of the lighter, I could see the woman's hand. That's really all I could see. It was just like a tiny spotlight. A very simple gesture which meant virtually nothing, I'm sure, to them. But it just happened that I had been a widow for about a year at this point, and that little gesture just reminded me, like a sharp pang in my heart, of a life which was lost forever to me." I too can relate to Elisabeth, for I have felt the intensity of that lonesome feeling. Sometimes I would wake up in the middle of the night when everything around me is so still and quiet, and the thought rushes into my mind that I am all alone in the world and there's not a soul to call on if I needed help. Or I might see a man who reminded me of my father, and all of a sudden I feel deeply the loss of connection with those long gone, and the ones who remain seem just as far away. Thankfully, those feelings do not last very long, and I'm back to normal in a short time. But for many, that feeling of isolation and loneliness, it just hangs on, perhaps never leaving them. Dr. Vivek H. Murthy, Surgeon General of the United States. He had his light bulb moment after what he referred to as a cross-country listening tour. He was surprised at the number of people who told him that they felt isolated, invisible, and insignificant. In his advisory on the epidemic of loneliness, he wrote that people of all ages and socioeconomic backgrounds from every corner of the country would tell me, "I have to shoulder all of life's burdens by myself." Or, "If I disappear tomorrow, no one will even notice." This is the reality not just in the United States of America, but all over the world. To think that we live in a world inhabited by billions of people, and yet so many feel isolated and disconnected from others. I think this is a good time to say that I am so pleased that this channel has reached different countries around the globe, connecting us in a way to one another. Greetings to New Zealand, England, Holland, Ireland, Canada, the United States, and the Caribbean. Thank you for reaching out. And if you are tuning in for the first time, I would love to hear from which part of the world you hail. PsychologyToday.com uses adjectives like distress and discomfort to describe loneliness. Elisabeth Elliot described it as a form of suffering. To me, it was just a feeling we get when we are alone, a feeling resulting from death and distance and situations like that. But isolation does not always equal lonely. Loneliness is something deeper and more dangerous. It's associated with heart disease, stroke, depression, and even premature death. Dr. Murthy wrote that loneliness is a subjective feeling where the connections we need are greater than the connections we have. So, if loneliness has to do with the absence of satisfactory social connections, then it stands to reason that having fulfilling relationships in which we feel seen and heard and appreciated can help to fill that void. But we all know that making quality friendships and working on improving the ones that we do have are not always easy. If you've made all attempts to build better relationships by communicating, praying, and seeking counsel, etc., and you still find yourself lonely, what then? Let's face it, not everyone in your life will want to work with you. It seems to me that the best antidote to loneliness is to work on your relationship with yourself and to do as King David did in 1 Samuel 30. David was greatly distressed because the people spoke of stoning him because the women and children were captured by the enemy. But the scripture says, "But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God." David knew that he was not alone. And you too must remember that you're not truly alone. There is a God who sees and hears you and who promised never to leave you. Guard against negative self-talk that convince you, falsely, that you are unworthy of wonderful friendships and companionship. Our beliefs can cause us to alienate others and keep us in a season of loneliness. David might have felt rotten about himself, but it didn't stop him from approaching God for guidance. And we must not let our own insecurities prevent us from going to God with our pain. Ask God to send the right people in your life. Another way to counteract loneliness is to do something for someone else. Take your mind off yourself for a while. You'll see that there are many others who are hurting too, and perhaps you can be the instrument to alleviate someone else's sorrow. As David and his men were pursuing the troops who had burned his city and captured the women and children, they came upon a young Egyptian who had not eaten or drunk for 3 days and 3 nights. David was distressed. His men were in deep sorrow over the loss of their loved ones. Yet they fed the young man, and the Bible said this man's spirit came again to him. and he led David and his troops to the enemy's camp. We must try our best not to let loneliness make us bitter, self-pitying, and needy. We must pray, ask God, what do you want me to learn from this? Like David, we should ask God what we should do. So, just how did David's family and those of his men ended up as prisoners? Well, David was afraid that one day Saul would finally kill him, so he sought asylum from a Philistine king. Remember Goliath, who David killed? He was a Philistine. The Philistines were Israel's enemy. Yet to David, they seemed the lesser of two evils. The deep anguish of loneliness is just too much for some people to bear. In order to numb that pain, many poor choices have been made, leading to even more pain. Seek wise counsel. Be dependent on God. Don't expect things from people that they just cannot give you. Loneliness is painful, but it doesn't have to be a permanent condition. God is with you. Reach out, do something to fill your own bucket. And most of all, do as David did and encourage yourself in the Lord, your God.